Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie alongside Chris Balas and Anthony Broome on a Thursday as always. Thanks for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button there. That'll help us out, get some more exposure. Hit the subscribe button as we speak right now. I think we're about 10 subscribers away from 20,000. So let's hit that landmark. Appreciate everybody's support. And, of course, follow our content at thewolverine.com all the time. And let's get into it, fellas. We got some stuff to talk about. We'll get to some NIL developments in a little bit. We will start with Ernest Hausmann from Nebraska, who will be transferring to Michigan. Chose the Wolverines over Ohio State and Iowa. He was originally recruited from Michigan or by Michigan during his original recruitment back in 2020. The Wolverines put in some effort there, weren't able to land him from hometown Nebraska. He's from Columbus, Nebraska. This is a kid from Uganda originally. Has a really similar story to Junior Colson. Was adopted by a family, was brought in, and is a hell of a football player, just like Junior Colson. Is a hell of a linebacker as well. 54 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery this season, 7 starts. He's playing behind a couple guys. There were injuries there, so he got some early opportunity, and he really shined. And going back, looking at the Michigan game, he made some big plays in that game, including a tackle for loss on J.J. McCarthy when he was trying to scramble. I wish we could play that clip without getting copyrighted on the YouTube, but some really good plays. So, fellas, a big land for Michigan, and between him and Ladarius Henderson, the former offensive lineman for Arizona State, who's coming to Michigan and enrolling early, Wolverines with a hot start in the transfer portal world.
This is what you're doing well, right, on the recruiting trail is NIL. You look at Olu, you look at Oluwatimi at center, you look at Iabioki, you look at this year now with Ladarius. This guy, by the way, is a complete leader from everybody we've spoken with. Great article by Clayton Sayfie about him and who he is. And now Ernest Hausmann. And you know what? It's funny. I got a text from Doug Karsh, like, wow. He said, I said that guy's name all the time, during that game. He said, I kept saying his name because I think he had 10 tackles, right, against Michigan.
I think so, yeah.
10 yeah,
of his 54.
And was all over the place. So he's a great football player and a great athlete, and he's still raw and he's still learning. So, but that is a great pickup. So to supplement the 2023 recruiting class, which has been underwhelming, I guess you would say, especially for a program that's won back-to-back titles and beaten Ohio State twice. But I like it. I think he's a great fit from everything we've heard, and that's what you got to do, man. You can't just get a bunch of guys and hope. You can't sell hope like they do down the road there from the portal. Bring in 30 guys and hope that one of them turns out to be Kenneth Walker. You've got to have a plan, and I think Michigan's got a nice one there.
Yeah, I like the addition. I mean, it's one that I can't say came out of left field. He was a guy that was on EJ's list a couple days ago, but still a little bit surprising to me. I didn't know how hard they'd go after linebackers in the portal, but it's a guy that, like Karsh said, someone who, as a true freshman, made a lot of plays this year on a Nebraska team that, make no mistake about it, was pretty terrible, but he was one of their better players on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know if it's something where maybe the writing's on the wall for a guy like Michael Barrett and his decision. Now, I did just come from a press conference speaking of Michael Barrett and also Trevor Keegan, both guys that seem like they might be 50-50 to come back. Neither has made a decision yet, but when you go in and get a guy like Hausmann from the portal, it makes you wonder if at the very least Michigan's hedging its bets, but at worst it means that's a guy that is stepping into one of those roles. So all of a sudden you look at the linebacker room next year. That's been a group we've had a lot of questions depth-wise about. You have Junior Colson, you'll have Hausmann, you'll have Jimmy Rolder, who I think will take a leap this offseason. You've got, we'll see about Nikai Hill-Green and how he's able to come back from his injury. But all of a sudden, I mean, you look at the strength of this year's team, especially defensively, is the depth, the improved depth from last year. And at least early on, at least on the defensive side of the ball, we'll see what happens with them at cornerback, but continues to be an emphasis for them. So far, like I said, if they're going to, if the recruiting is going to be kind of the way it is right now with NIL, all of a sudden you're backfilling some of these needs through the transfer portal and getting guys that, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, even if you bring in a class full of 4- and 5-star recruits, those guys are still lotto tickets. Right now, Michigan's got 2 starting caliber players via the transfer portal with potentially more on the way. So I like how proactive they're being in terms of that. I think the approach in terms of the transfer portal, these are the type of guys they're going to get. It's going to be the graduate guys, or it's going to be the the guys that are earlier on in their careers where they don't have to worry as much about those credits transferring over. And I think so far, I mean, you've got two as good of fits as you can possibly get at two positions of need going into next season.
Yeah, in linebacker depth. I remember when we were doing these shows back in the summer, we were saying, what are the concerns on this team? And really a luxury for Michigan is that we were kind of nitpicking a little bit. We were saying, maybe depth at linebacker. Michael Barrett hasn't totally stepped up yet, and Nakai's been good, but there's no Josh Ross there to pair with Junior Colson. And now here we are. It depends on what happens with Michael Barrett. And then the big question really that I start to think about too is Kalel Mullings, who hasn't made a huge impact at linebacker yet in his career. Now he's a running back right now, played both ways in the Big Ten championship game. What do you do there? You're still waiting on a Blake Corum decision, but you have Donovan Edwards and a bunch of unproven guys. And I know it's something we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, just, what's going to happen with the running backs, and you're kind of in limbo. But I think this gives you a pretty good chance right now, even with Michael Barrett, whether or not he comes back, to let Kalel Mullings kind of continue to play running back and see how far that thing can develop, because he showed some potential there and looked really good the last couple games.
He did, and better than C.J. Stokes, honestly, for being clear. I mean, there are rumors now that C.J. Stokes isn't happy. He's thinking about transferring, whatever, to which I would say, number one, they're rumors. We haven't heard anything concrete about it. Number two, the problem with the news cycle as it is today is that what's true one day might not be true the next day. And so you can you can report something and then come back and the next day it's not true. So that's what we'd say about that. And who knows the future for Tavi Dunlap. I think maybe he'll see the writing is on the wall, and we'll see if he's here next year. There's still no definitive word on Blake Corum, and we'll have more on that in Inside the Fort tomorrow. Could he potentially come back to Michigan? So keep an eye open for that. And that room has a chance to be loaded again. But again, if you have two, you really need a third, guys, in this day and age. And we've seen that, right? So credit to Donovan Edwards for playing with that broken thumb, that hand injury, we'll call it. So, but you need more than two. So they're going to look to the portal there as well.
Yeah, they need to, honestly. Mm-hmm. I mean, regardless of who comes back. I mean, I think the depth there is just you talk about areas of concern. I mean, one injury, all of a sudden your backfield has looked a lot different, and it's good to see that they've been able to piece it together over these last couple games. But I mean, rumors and pertaining to Stokes again, until to me, I'm not going to speak for a guy, but in some of the only conversation we had with him on the record this year, that doesn't seem like a guy that would cut and run based on some diminished playing time in his freshman season. I mean, he is still a freshman playing behind Blake Corum, playing behind Donovan Edwards. So again, I don't know. I can't really speak a ton to that, but yeah, I mean, you look at the needs moving forward. I think it's obviously running back. They've been going after tight ends in the portal. I think they'll probably still bring in another arm at quarterback to fill in that kind of Alan Bowman type of role. It's just a guy who has experience on the roster. And I think the nice thing about their approach in the portal is that they are kind of turning over every stone now. I think they're more prepared. You talked about how they're more prepared in terms of where they're at this time of year, with preparing for the college football playoff and what it takes to get ready for that. I think they've also made strides in terms of how they're evaluating and building their roster during this time off that they have too. So, I hate to be you be the trust the process guy, but I think that the infrastructure and structure they have in place to keep this thing rolling in terms of recruiting and transfer portal, they'll, there always needs to be filled. There's no such thing as a perfect football team, but I think Michigan's in pretty good shape here.
I don't know how these coaches do it right now with having to take all these home visits, prepare for the college football playoff, and worry about the transfer portal and all that. It's insane. It's almost like, since bowl games now are meaningless and the playoffs all that matters, but now that the transfer portal opens December 5th, it's like you're looking at these games being basically played in the off season almost. It's really weird, like where you're kind of preparing for 2023, but you're also, and I know that always has been the case with signing day, but it's just a weird time in college football for sure with all this stuff. But Michigan doing pretty well in it, navigating that in the transfer portal. At least. Let's talk a little more Michigan football in a second. We'll talk about our friends at Prize Picks first. Football season is still going. There isn't a better way to enjoy watching your favorite team like Michigan than by playing daily fantasy with our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the simplest form of real money daily fantasy sports and just pits you against the numbers. Whether you're a fantasy sports nut or a casual fan looking to add some excitement to the games, Prize Picks is the perfect game for you. It's the best way to have action on the game in states like Michigan, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida, Texas, Georgia, and over 70% of the United States. Prize Picks is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada, not Ontario. You simply select 2 to 5 players and predict if they will go more or less than their Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. This week, I have Jared Goff going more than 230.5 passing yards against the Jets. I also have the Lions defense more than 2.5 sacks against the New York Jets. I don't know who's playing quarterback. I haven't got that far into it, but by the looks of it, there's some hits out there to be had on those Jets quarterbacks, like Mike White. Do you guys have any picks this week over with our friends at Prize Picks?
Go for it, AB.
Yeah, I've got bowl games start tomorrow. Bowl season starts on Friday. We've actually got a pretty decent matchup here. 2 11-win teams, UTSA against Troy. I'm rolling with the quarterbacks in this game. I think we're going to get a lot of points. So I've got Frank Harris of UTSA more than 285.5 passing yards. And I've got Gunnar Watson of Troy more than 230.5 yards passing. So bowl season kicks off. I can't say I'll watch all 43 bowl games, which is just way too many, but I like this matchup, and it should be a fun one.
I like any guy named Gunner to go over 230 yards, so I'm going to agree with you.
I was literally about to say, I'm going to name my kid Gunner, I think, one day.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to be a quarterback. I mean,
yeah, or a guitarist for Nelson. So you guys know that's before your time, except for AB, who probably understood that.
No,
so
that one's.
There's a band called Nelson. Ricky Nelson's kids had a band called Nelson in the late '80s, early '90s, and Gunner was one of the names. So we're gonna go with Gunner over 230. I'm with you, Clayton, on Goff. Boy, this guy's playing good football now. His best football is being played at home, and now that the Lions have sucked me back in, I'm sure they'll lose 4 straight. But I'm going with Goff over 230 more than 230.5 yards.
Quick little sidebar here. They do have some college football playoff projections in already. We won't make this pick yet, but interesting number here. JJ McCarthy set at 200.5 passing yards. I think I'd be hitting more on that, but we'll see what next week brings.
Yeah, that is. I think they're gonna run it down their throats for like 500 yards or something like that. So
it's true. It's true. TCU's run defense. Interesting though. Yeah. So take a look at those if you're a Michigan fan, which I assume most people are listening, unless we got some Sparty lurkers. As always, you can always take the less than on the Michigan guys if you're a Sparty guy. So do that. Join us over at Prize Picks. We appreciate our sponsors. Download the Prize Picks app or visit prizepicks.com. Sign up using the code Wolverine to get an instant 100% bonus up to $100 on your first deposit. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget that's the Prize Picks app or prizepicks.com and the code Wolverine to claim your bonus today. So yeah, Michigan in the playoff. We'll talk NIL in a second. Anthony has an article up over at thewolverine.com. Potential, guys, maybe not breakout, but the unsung heroes that could step up here in the playoff. You get 15 bowl practices coming up. And then Chris this morning as well with the story on 5 potential breakout players for Michigan next season. This is a good opportunity for guys to step up. I mean, I know when you're in the playoff, it's less of, hey, it's like not a quasi spring ball like maybe some teams approach it where you get back to basics because Michigan's chasing a national title. But man, at this point in the year, it's the cliche that coaches always use. You're not a freshman anymore. And we've seen this with the Michigan players here in the last few games of the year. Colston Loveland stepping up. Will Johnson with a couple picks in the Big Ten championship game and did a really good job on Marvin Harrison Jr. Guys that have been contributors throughout the year, but have really taken on bigger roles and even more guys as well. The young talent, I think, on this team is really strong and bodes well for the future. Chris, talk about maybe your story this morning and some of those guys that are going to be really exciting for the future.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk about kickers and punters, but where would they be without Jake Moody, right? And Tommy Doman has had an incredible fall. He had a great summer. He's going to do double duty, fellows, as both the punter and the kicker, and I think he's going to do a great job there. So he's going to kind of slide into that Moody Robbins role. And that should be fun to watch. Derek Moore is a guy that I keep hearing about, disruptive when he gets a little stronger, when he develops more than one pass rush move. He's twitchy. I think you're going to see him have a breakout season next year. I really do. In terms of getting to the passer, even if he's just a specialist, remember Ojabo and what his role was, right? So, and then one other I'll mention is Raheem Anderson. Greg Crippen's been the heir apparent at center for a long time, but Raheem Anderson just keeps getting stronger, bigger. And when we saw him playing angry against Rutgers, somebody told me that, hey, this is the way this guy has progressed and he wants it badly. So keep an eye on him. We'll see what happens with Michigan's guards, Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter, if they come back. We've heard conflicting things on that, and we'll address that again in tomorrow's Inside the Fort as well. But Raheem Anderson can play center or guard. I think he's going to be a really good lineman here at Michigan. I think he's going to play a lot next year.
Raheem, similar to Giovanni El-Hadi over the last couple of years, I saw both those kids when they were high school seniors, and they have completely transformed their bodies as well, especially Raheem Anderson. He looks like a beast in the making, so that'll be one to watch for sure. A guy that we'll be watching during that spring game. Anthony, talk about some of the guys you think could step up here in the college football playoff, younger guys from Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, a mixture of younger guys and also guys that have been around, but also waiting in the weeds. I mean, we've already sort of hit on it earlier with Khalil Mullings. I mean, Michigan was toying around with throwing him at running back during the spring, but some things come up at linebacker. They put a pin in that plan, and he winds up staying over on that side of the ball. But all of a sudden, I mean, Blake Corum gets hurt, and Michigan kind of revisits that. And we had the jump pass moment at Ohio State. He had a pair of touchdowns on the goal line in that Big Ten championship game. Again, it's tough to predict who does what and whose role is what it is. But all of a sudden, Khalil Mullings looks like a guy on offense who, we've seen this happen before at Michigan, where guys turn over to the other side of the ball and make as much, if not more, of an impact over there. So really interested in seeing what he's able to bring. A guy that I think has a lot of juice there, obviously. When we saw him in the spring, just needs to hold on to the football. So going to be interested to see how they use him. I believe this was a guy that was also in Chris's article about breakout guys for next year, but Tyler Morris is someone that I feel like now that they get those extra bowl practices, which they would have had regardless, but now you get them with a national title on the line. Tyler Morris is a former high school teammate of J.J. McCarthy. Strikes me as the type of guy that is going to make a lot of big plays, a lot of big catches. Maybe not a guy that, burns a defense for 75 yards over the top, but someone who moves the chains on third down and has sure hands, and someone who has that built-in chemistry with his quarterback. So I like what Morris could potentially bring to the table if he's given an opportunity. Braden McGregor, I think, on the edge has, with Michigan, has been able to kind of rotate those edge rush guys in sort of like hockey lines. And McGregor, I think, over the last couple of weeks has played some of his best football, and someone who, just needs to maybe improve a little bit in terms of finishing plays. But I think he's going to have an impact. And last but not least is, at this point, like I said, we probably passed the point of no return in terms of this guy being an under the radar type of unsung hero, but Mason Graham is someone who I don't think we've spoken highly of enough throughout this season. I mean, he's someone who is advanced for his age at defensive tackle. You don't see guys at defensive tackle ready right out of the box like this, but his mechanics are advanced for his age. I think the bull rush right off the bat was impressive, and now in the last month or so, we've seen him add a swim move and add some other aspects to his game. So again, I know whatever matchup you get, you're going to be playing some high-powered offenses, but I think you're still going to have to stop the run to win a national title. And that guy is as good a run defender as anyone on this roster right now. So those are the guys for me.
I've been kissing Mason Graham's big old defensive tackle butt for a while now, guys. I said he's literally the best Michigan freshman, true freshman defensive tackle I have ever seen in my lifetime, and I'm no spring chicken. So love what he's doing. I would bring up Colston Loveland too as a guy. As many touchdown passes in his career right now as Eric All. Is that right?
I think so.
I think that's true. So, and he's only going to get better. And when he gets stronger and when he becomes a better blocker, I think one of Eric's family members was ripping on his blocking. And I'm like, come on, man, this guy's a true freshman. That's not cool. Let's put this thing to bed here. Eric All is now an Iowa Hawkeye, and you know what? Good luck to him. But don't need the sniping on the tweeter. So. Anyway, it's Colston Loveland as well. So sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, Clay, but
no.
I had to bring his name up. I think he's going to be an outstanding one.
100%. Yeah. And I hate to get in the fray here, but I mean, I do remember back when a certain former Michigan tight end now was a freshman, and there was talk about, he hits hard and, he tries hard, but he doesn't know which way he's going. So there's a learning curve for everybody. And Colston Loveland, by the way, has handled that as good as anybody that I've seen at the tight end position for Michigan. And it is obviously, I think he's, future. Was it Harbaugh that said he could be the best tight end they've ever had here? Or maybe Grant Newsome. That's some high praise. Or might even have been Matt Weiss. I actually think
that's high praise. I will say this: he is the best Idaho tight end I've ever seen at Michigan.
Ever.
No close second.
He might
no close second. There you
have. So there you go. We will also, as things progress here, we just got to talk to Michigan players for the first time today during bowl practices. We'll get some more tomorrow. We'll get some more throughout the week. And then when we're down in Arizona, it'll really ramp up. So we will talk more Michigan TCU as the next couple of weeks progress, but extremely excited for that game, Michigan's appearance in the college football playoff. Let's shift gears and finish with I love this topic, guys. NIL, Michigan NIL. But Chris, you've been really plugged in on this and doing a lot of reporting on Michigan's, efforts in the NIL space right now, what they're trying to do, kind of organize things with collectives and everything like that from an administration standpoint. What's the latest that you're willing to share? Obviously, for all the latest, go to the Wolverine.com and sign up with us there. But, what do you want to talk about with this today? Because it seems like there's a lot going on and they're trying to make some progress here.
Yeah, there's still a handful of people, and even I think a couple sites saying, oh, it's not bad, and this and that and this and that. Well, in speaking people directly involved, and we're talking boosters, we're talking people who are close to it making decisions, it is bad, and it's not good enough. And I don't, people can be mad at me for saying it, but guys need to step up, and that really, it starts with the athletic department. And okay, if you don't have an NIL director, why don't you? It is illegal, and it is not illegal. It is legal to have an NIL director, and that's been clarified. It's been moving at a snail's pace, guys, since we knew about it 18 months ago. They should have been working on it and saying, okay, what do we need to do? What are other people doing? And at the very least, right now, you should be looking at the people who are doing it successfully. We're not talking about pay for play. We're not talking about here's $3 million for Dante Moore or a quarterback or something like that. We're talking about what can we do to make sure that we are competitive with the teams like Notre Dame, who aren't exactly paying for play, but have something set up in place where people know that they're going to get paid and get opportunities. So it's not good enough, fellas, flat out. And the president, absolutely, Santa Ono cares. We had some insider on our board say, Santa Ono was never going to be that closely involved. That's a bunch of crap. So just please pay attention to what we are writing on our message boards here and listen to what we're saying here. There's no question that he is heavily involved and that he is interested in this and that he is so much about athletics and making sure that Michigan is up here, as he said when he first got here, that this is not going to go by the wayside. People are going to be held accountable. If Santa Ono himself had to take it upon himself to hire an NIL director, I think he would do that. But that's not his job, and he shouldn't have to do that. But I can promise you he is interested. I can promise you that this has gotten a lot of attention this week. The regents are involved. Everybody who needs to be is involved in this. And really, fair or not, because it comes with the territory, the buck stops with Ward Manuel as the athletic director, who I love and who has done a lot of great things at Michigan. All you have to do is look at where the athletic department is under his watch, and you can say, oh, it's on cruise control, whatever. No, he's done a great job. But this is about the future of the athletic department. You can't rest on your laurels, to give the old cliche, whatever you want. It needs to be better for the future of the program, because that is what contributes to funding all the rest of the programs here at Michigan.
A couple of things real quick, just not that you need vouching for, because the track record speaks for itself, but knowing who some of the sources are, they're obviously as good as it gets. And two things as well, like the recruiting class coming off of what this team is and what it currently is, coming off of last year and what this season is, should be better. And when there are, people that are directly involved saying that NIL is a reason for it and not good enough for it, then, that needs to be resolved. Then you have the issue that even if you are a Notre Dame type, you're already seeing they're going to lose Peyton Bowen, their 5-star commit as well. There's rumors out there. I know he came out and shot him down, that there's basically a bidding war going on between the likes of Oklahoma and Oregon. That stuff's happening. Not saying, I have no knowledge of Peyton Bowen's recruitment, but
right.
That stuff doesn't shock you based on what you hear about some of these other kids. So that stuff's going to happen, even if you have things in place. And you even see Notre Dame fans complaining about their NIL. There's always more to reach, but Michigan right now isn't even at that level, and that's a concern.
Yeah, it is, and that's a huge concern. And like I said about Santa Ono is not Mark Schlissel here. Okay, he understands. Okay, there's a disconnect there. If you've got the number 2022 recruiting class in the country, they'll probably be anywhere from 25 to 30 when it's all said and done, or maybe about 25. And you're coming off back to back. You're coming off an unprecedented 2 years here, back to back in Michigan football history. And that should assure at a place like Michigan that you're getting a top 5, top 10 class, and it's not. So what's the reason for that? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. So people need to step up, flat out, no doubt about it. I think a lot of people, though, are starting to pull in the right direction and putting the pressure on for them to do the right thing here, because it's really not that hard. And there are the people that we've spoken to who are very close to it say, we get an NIL director in here and we start doing things right, we could change this in 2-3 weeks. The kids that we're always going to be are going to get bought are a lot of the kids that we're always going to get bought, right? But there are a lot of others who are looking still for an opportunity like Michigan. And if you give them anything and any reason to come here, they're going to come. So get it done, fellas.
AB, follow that up.
That's enough said. I mean, I feel like everything I've said on this topic has been, again, I would just reiterate that for a athletic department, for a university where it's in the fight song, leaders and best, right? Way too proactive, really. I mean, way too reactive. And I won't even say reactive. They haven't reacted at all.
Enough.
They haven't changed anything at all. And this is, NIL wasn't something that happened overnight on July 1, 2021. That was stuff that was in Congress for, I feel like, years leading up to that. When you lead an athletic department, and again, I'm not putting it all on Ward Manuel, but I guess when I say you lead an athletic department, I guess that does kind of do it. You're not just looking to the present and resting on your laurels. You have to always be looking for ways to push things forward and keeping your department relevant. And I don't know Ward Manuel personally. I would never bash him or anything. I think he's done a fine job in the areas he has, but it hasn't been good enough. And he hasn't been forward thinking enough. And that's disappointing. And it feels like we're kind of reaching a boiling point here with people in positions of power. It's getting close to being, it's getting close to being too late. So let's put a pin, like let's get this figured out is where it's at. And if not, you're just going to piss off more people and make things worse long term. So it needs to change. We've reached the breaking point here, I think.
100%. They have reached the boiling point, and they know it, Anthony. And that's the good news, is that the people in power understand now, and that they are at that boiling point, and something needs to change.
For sure. And for those that want to support the Michigan football team, they're having an event on Saturday. I will say this about NIL. Like the collectives and all this, it's really not what the law was intended for, but that's what's going on. But there are people working, to actually help these kids out, get their own deals, which is what it was intended for. So they're doing that. So they're doing an event on Saturday at Oosterbaan Fieldhouse where you can interact with the players. So stuff like that's still going on. Michigan players are able to make money through things like that, but I think they need to get a little more organized with their collective and everything like that. You're seeing Luke Fickell comes in at Wisconsin, and he's talking about, hey, here's where to, put your money here with our collectives, and here's the links and all this stuff. So that stuff's going on too. Michigan should be a little bit better at that. But we will leave it there for this week. We got a lot of writing to do with our magazine, so check us out there at thewolverineondemand.com, but always at thewolverine.com. We're there 24/7 on the message board with articles, all that. $10 gets you premium access until next football season, the 2023 football season. So takes you through spring ball, takes you through fall camp, takes you through the college football playoff that's coming up. So join us there, subscribe to our channel here, help us hit 20,000, and like the video, and we'll see everyone next week.